the Motat Society is to do two things. One is to appoint 4 members to that board, and the other thing is to operate its own incorporated society purposes, which it has, that are obviously under the interests of the museum, aligned with it, but they're not to do with the governance and the management on the operation of the museum. So the Motat Society's role really stops and starts at the appointment of 4 board members.
Yeah, good point.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Casey.
Thanks, Leslie. Mostly answered my questions, but what are the issues of contention, the constitutional issues? What can you give us some flavour of what's been?
Oh, simply to say, Councillor Casey, that the Act under which Motat operates is no longer fit for purpose, and it creates, for example, at a governance level, every year we have to have two or four members of the board are replaced, because the Act requires a whole churn around the board table. You know, it governs the way the levy must be paid through the council. You know, it's basically an out-of-date Act, and that's what Sir Don's really talking about, that it needs review or amendment.
Madam Chair, should we be adding an E to allow you to raise the issue of the Act when you go to Parliament to talk about the Auckland Museum?
What it says in item 15 under F is authorise the Finance and Performance Committee to write, the chair of to write to the Honourable Maggie Barry to discuss opportunities for improving the governance and funding of Auckland museums. It's a change for what you've got in your agenda.
Can we just put it as an E here? Just the same words,
we could
put not on the screen.
No, it's not on the screen because it's under 15, but if you'd like me to add it to
just
this
the
one.
same one,
so just put it up
as
there.
an E.
That's fine. Okay, thank you.
I think if I can add, Madam Chair, if everyone worked within the spirit of the Act, it would be entirely workable. It's basically workable at Auckland War Memorial Museum with their museum society. But in this case, it is not working, and I wouldn't, you know, the old phrase, hard cases make bad law. It is timely with the new city. They're a charitable trust, new health and safety, to relook at the whole Act.
And that's I absolutely agree with you, Sir Don. Councillor Cooper?
No, I think all my questions have been answered, Madam Chair. I was going to say, is there something we could do around funding and making it conditional on sorting things out, but it's clear that you can't. It's got to be a change in legislation if people won't operate within the intent of the Act, really. It's the last, you know, there's only one thing to do.
Councillor Brewer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question's probably levelled at Sir Don as far as alternative revenue sources, and you've put it in the RFA submission letter of expectation to Motat that they are, quote, requesting a focus on growing revenue sources other than the ratepayer levy, and that there is a measurable a performance measure relating to this focus. So one, just trying to get a glimpse, given all that's going on, as to the realism of achieving that in the next 12 months, 16-17, and two, what kind of performance measure has been put in place, and so your expectations around their ability to raise alternative revenue in the next 12 months.
Well, thank you, and probably Dr. Turk or Chris Brooks could also develop that, but you know, our concern is that whilst there is this sort of aura of dysfunctionality around Motat, I'll just say an aura, people don't really know what the specifics are, but it doesn't give a lot of confidence to get extra sponsorship and things like that. You know, the visitorship at Motat's about $250,000, I think that's right, isn't it? And the zoo next door is 3 times that. To me, it has the capacity to do a lot better than what it is, but that's all about engaging with the Auckland public in a very positive way, not seeing these newspaper articles from time to time of people taking shots at each other about their board performance.
Through the chair, I'd just sort of expand on the answer to that question. So Don's right, one of the keys to raising more revenue is getting more people through the door, and the key to getting more people through the door is making the museum more relevant to what the Auckland community and indeed New Zealand wants out of a museum like MOTAT. But in the interim, we have a number of initiatives underway to raise additional funds. For example, we run functions out of various spaces at MOTAT. I don't know how many of you have actually experienced one of our dinners at the Aviation Display Hall, highly recommended. But that is a twofold thing, because one, it raises revenue, but secondly, it brings people into that environment, predominantly corporates, that wouldn't normally go to MOTAT or be aware of it. And that enables us to develop partnerships with them so that we can get goods in kind or get some form of funding for a restoration building, etc. But Sir Don's right, to the extent that these things play out in public, each time we build up one of these relationships, you get to that scenario, here goes MOTAT again, and they start backing off. So we get this sort of cycle sort of aspect of it, and we've got to find a way of breaking that cycle.
Thank you. Councillor Quacks.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of questions. First of all, I'm not sure who this should be directed at, but what percentage of the OPEX is being accounted for by the levy that we pay? Can somebody help me with that?
Through the chair, I'd say it's probably 98%.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Just to put a little bit of perspective, I think we're looking for 13. Our budget's pushing it out to about 16 to 17 mil. And again, it goes back to my earlier answer.
Yeah, thanks. And Madam Chair, it's quite good that we've had this discussion around revenue and trying to improve the revenue. And I wonder if in B, given what's already in the statement of intent about requesting the growing revenue stream, I wonder if we might just want to change B from the ask the Museum of Transport and Technology to perhaps direct. I think that's a stronger term, and it may be appropriate given our major portion of the OPEX that we pay, and perhaps ask the museum to report progress back to us on a fairly timely basis so that we can understand where it's going, and I think it would be helpful to both parties.
Very good.
So I just wonder if that word should be from ask to direct, and also some timely reporting on the progress that's being made to increase revenue.
Happy with that, Sir Don? Okay, everybody? Right, okay, change that to direct, that's fine. Councillor Lee?
Thank you very much, Sir Don and Dr McTurk and Mr Frawley. Can I start off by congratulating you on MOTAT? I want to be positive about it because it's one of Auckland's best kept secrets, and it is an important cultural facility. I think we should bear that in mind. I'm sorry to hear about the problems in this room. Like everyone else, I've heard different sides of the story. Some from well-respected Aucklanders who would take a different view from what we've heard this morning. And that is a cause for concern. And I think it would be helpful in terms of RFA and the Auckland Council as a shareholder of RFA to hear both sides of the story to try and sort this out. In the meantime, I think it would be good for the Council itself to view how do we measure success at places like MOTAT. Is it the amount of money it makes or the number of people coming through the door? All of these are important, but they're not the whole picture. In fact, there is some hilarity and cynicism, and I don't know if this is true, but it comes from a reliable source, that the crowds for the Pacifica Festival were diverted through Motat so they could be counted as Motat entrants.
That was a good idea.
No, I'm just passing that on. Now, that is a source of hilarity from some of the volunteers, but there is obviously a philosophical difference. It's not just at the volunteer level, it goes to the highest level of Motat, and a philosophical difference need not be personal, and a philosophical difference can be resolved. In the meantime, I hope there is an end to the palace politics we're hearing, or the emphasis on the palace politics, and focus back on the important exhibits, the important cultural facility that Motat provides, because whatever goes on around the boardroom table or between societies and this, that, one and the other, the exhibits and the volunteers are still excellent and something for Auckland to be proud of. I hope we can resolve the problems. Thank you.
Through the chair, I don't want to enter into a debate, but I do think one of the comments from Councillor Lee needs to be responded to. In relation to Pacifica, we did not open merely to get the numbers through the gate. Historically, Motat has been closed for that event for 2 days, and what we did this year is we actually have a role to play in relation to Pacifica, and we became part of the village. So to actually say that we directed people through to increase the numbers is unfair on the museum and the team that was involved, and indeed it's unfair on those who arranged Pacifica. And secondly, I would like to say that this is not a volunteer issue. The Motat Society does not represent volunteers. The museum has a relationship with the volunteers, the society has a relationship with its members. There is a difference between the two, and just to put some meat on the bone, the society has approximately 300 members, out of which 150 of those are volunteers in the museum. We have 224 volunteers, so there are 63 at least that are not members of the Motat Society, and that number is increasing at a great rate of knots with a different gender profile, age profile and a cultural profile from Motat's history. Motat is changing and people need to get used to that, and in order to be relevant to the community we need to change, because the old Motat, as outlined by Dame Cheryl Sutherland, is redundant. It has an important role, the trams will continue to run, the planes will be continued to be preserved, and we will continue to offer that, but we need to overlay it with the Kiwi innovation and technology story, which is outlined in the draft annual plan. So, just like I say, I don't want to leave, to quote my chair, leave this room with the sort of distinct impression that we're trying to manipulate money. It'd be nice to manipulate money, manipulate numbers. We are trying to play our part in the Auckland community, and Pacifica is just one of those events. And likewise, this weekend we've got Auckland City Limits. We have to close for that, but again, we are doing our part by making our facilities available for the children drop-off area and for the VIP centre. Now, we could have easily said no, but we're not. We're trying to play our part for the Auckland community and indeed the Western Springs as a whole. So I hope that helps the councillors.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Fletcher.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm happy to move these recommendations, but in doing so, I just want to recognise that the governance has not been a new issue. The issue, Sir Don will remember, if we go back 20 years, we've talked about the museums that we have in Auckland, how we can support these museums, and with no disrespect to the previous speaker, when you're dealing with passionate volunteers, you are going to have tensions from time to time because people are fiercely protective of valuable assets. And that has been, I think, behind some of the fraught relationships that I've observed over the last 20 years and the difficulties that Motat has experienced. So I want to recognise those people who have held the flag for Motat, and I want to recognise Dr. McTurk for the role that she's played in what can be at times, I'm sure, a challenging position. And to have the support of Sidon in understanding that the time is right for, perhaps long overdue, some really serious consideration as to how we move forward for our very valuable museums in Auckland. So I think that these recommendations are in order today, and I'm happy to support them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, councillor Fletcher. Councillor Darby, did you want to speak again?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was about to move, councillor Fletcher's moved it, but just to point out that I did put up a change which is on the board, I hope members have seen it, under D, and that we strongly recommended the Motat Society that continue with the joint board appointment program. That's the change.
Yes,
as to
we've
what's on the
accepted
agenda.
that change.
My question is, how would that be conveyed once carried here today? Would that be from maybe Mayor's letter, CEO's letter?
Probably later, but we can,
Can we look at a way of making
Letter.
sure that's conveyed with some weight?
yep, and we'll copy that to you. Thank you. And finally, member Taipo.
Kia ora, Madam Chair. Ka nui te mihi ki a koutou I tēnei wā. Just a few questions, probably for the Chief Executive, is that with the use of te reo having proved successful, are there any other plans to increase the 2016-17 target for Māori content to more than one exhibition